What was your big break to get into Hollywood film mixing and mastering? Now, this one will probably surprise a few people, and I've just recently done a podcast with Finestro, who is the guy that we did our big we had our big break with, and it was in 2012. Basically, what happened was Finestro, he's an American composer. He came to us and said, "Look, I've got the opportunity to score for Spider-Man 2. It was the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Basically, he was given the job, and it was supposed to be Hans Zimmer's. It was given to him, and he needed mixing and mastering expertise on such a high scale job. The problem was he came to us with zero budget, and me and Nick, we both kind of sat there and was like, right, okay. We'd worked with him multiple times before, and we created a friendship, and we used to speak most weeks, regardless of working relationship. It was we spoke as friends, but he came to us with zero budget and said, "Look, Paul, I have the opportunity. I'm scoring for Spider-Man 2. Will you help me out on it? I have no budget." And we sat there and we kind of went, you know what? I don't want to work for free, and I value my time. I don't work for free, but what I did do was I did take a punt on it, and I did say, all right, let's do it, and if it materializes and it does become, we can then officially say we'd worked on the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It turned out that what we did, and it then went on to go onto the DVD, and it was we got great credits for it and all this sort of stuff. Technically speaking, we didn't get paid for it, but what we did get paid for, and it's so cliche, we got paid in exposure, right? We got paid in exposure. Now, the hardest part about any business, especially in audio, is getting that first client, right? Because without that first client, you can't then pick up the rest of the clients. Now, I'll tell you now, we did Spider-Man 2. We announced that we'd done Spider-Man 2. 1 week later, we did X-Men. I think it was Days of Future Past. 1 week later, we did X-Men. Straight off the back of that, we did, I can't think but we just, then the ball started rolling. Now, I can't help but feel, had we not gone and took a punt on this and said, right, we're going to go for this, we're going to, this guy's our friend, we're going to kind of help him out. This was 2012. We were 1 year into starting Audio Animals. So we were still, building our credits up as a business, as a company. Because when you start a company, you start from scratch. You don't bring all your clients with you, you don't bring all your credits with you. You start, this is Audio Animals. These are the credits that Audio Animals have achieved. Now, if you go onto our credits list, it's ridiculous. There's probably about 100 of the biggest Hollywood movies you will all have watched. But when you start out, when you first, on day one, you've got none of that. So you've got to win clients based on being able to kind of say, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. You've got to kind of win people over to work with you, and it's very difficult at the beginning. As you establish yourself, your work speaks for itself, your client list speaks for itself, and people, you don't have to. There's not so much convincing to be done. But that was our big break, and had we not taken that big break, and had we not done that, I don't think we'd be where we are now, because getting that initial Hollywood movie, you don't just get a Hollywood movie. You don't just get given one and gone, right. The budgets are incredible with Hollywood movies. Now, you might ask, well, why didn't we get paid? Because he wasn't getting paid, right? So it was kind of, they were taking a punt on him and not paying him, and he was bringing us into the fold to help with making sure that it is, you know, it gets that big seal of approval tick. So yeah, that was our big break, and it was a huge break. You don't, like, there's very few mastering studios and mixing studios that are kind of working in Hollywood, like, as well as working with the guy down the road, as well as working with, you know, any people who come through a website to place orders. You know, it's very rare for like, to work on such major placements, to work on just normal song after song. But you know, I love working in Hollywood. I love working with the big major films. It's incredible. I love mixing films in Dolby Atmos here, but I love working with kind of underground artists as well. I love working, you know, music's music to me. However it is, whatever it is, it's enjoyable to do. You know, some genres I don't particularly like, but I like mixing them. I don't necessarily sit down and listen to them at home, for instance. So yeah, big break was the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when we did that, and that was probably 10 years ago now. Now, one thing I will say on this subject is, now it is, and I hear people, especially DJs, they don't like this. They don't like to be paid in exposure, and I don't like to be paid in exposure. I don't like it, but as from a business perspective, I understand that sometimes you've got to look at what you're getting in the way of exposure, you know, and the way you utilize it. For instance, the reason we got X-Men the day, a week after we did, we announced Spider-Man, was because we announced it. Right now, any DJ, for instance, or producer, if you've got something that you're doing for free, like let's say, for instance, a DJ goes and does one of the biggest, like a warm-up set for free for one of the biggest DJs, for instance, shout about it, right? If you make it known, it will lead on to another job, because the way people will think is, if he's good enough to do that, he's definitely good enough to do this. If he's like, people will, and this is totally natural, they will look at a company like us and look at the credits for all these amazing Hollywood movies and go, right, if they've done Hollywood movies and they've been trusted with those sorts of Hollywood movies, I can trust them with my music, you know, because that is, without, you know, by no means is this designed to sound in any way big-headed, but Hollywood movies are up there. They are ridiculous. Like Avengers Endgame is right up there in comparison to an independent song, and that's just, you know, that is just logical. So it does have a big impact, that with regards to how people perceive you as a business, for instance. So yeah, I mean, I am highly grateful that Finestro came to us, got us on board with that, and I'm highly thankful that I realised myself the potential of taking this job on. Even though it was for free, I took it on, and that was my big break. And sometimes you've got to just go for something. You know, sometimes you might not get paid for something, but you'll get paid for it eventually. If it's good and it comes off, you will get paid for it eventually, based on the fact that, you know, you'll get more work from it. As long as you get more work from it, and if you do something that's great and you don't get more work from it, that's on you. That's because you haven't utilized you doing that job for free in the right way. And I mean, don't it's a tricky one, because you can always do jobs for experience. Experience is different from exposure. So you can do stuff, if you don't know how to do something, you want to kind of gain experience, or you need to kind of get a little bit of jobs behind you and things like that. You do have to work sometimes for free, and it's not a bad thing to do that. And I mean, I rarely do it now, but I understand that there's sometimes that us as a business, we have to go in lower. We have to, I did a film a little while ago, and instead of charging 30 grand, it was a 10 grand job. So it was, it was in lower, but it ensured that we won the job. We've now got six films with with this company. So, just because you do one at a relatively low price to start off with, it doesn't mean it won't lead on to more things. Now, the one thing to bear in mind here, I mean, this video's kind of taken a different course, but one thing to bear in mind here is that you can go down the kind of route where you've gone in low, you've won the job low, and now that's your value. So now when you get jobs through this company, this same people you're working with, you're now valued here. And you can't you can't just go, right, well, I did that job for 10 grand, now I want 30, kind of thing. You do get, you can find that you, because you've kind of set a kind of a price, that following on from that, you have to keep going in low. What I always do, and what my advice on that would be, is make it clear that this job, this first job that you're doing, you are doing it because it is a lower rate because of X, Y, Z. I've done things before. I've done a movie. What was it, about 2 years ago? No, it wasn't. It was in this studio, so it was about 8 months ago, maybe. And I did that at a very much reduced price because it was for charity. Now, some people might argue that, right, well, okay, is it a charity that you support? Should you be, technically, I am donating money because I'm reducing the price to the charity, and yeah, sometimes that is the case. But you have to weigh it up whether it's a good business decision to do, or whether it's something that you shouldn't be doing. I always think, I try to kind of set the price at what we want. This is what we want, but there's wiggle room. There's always wiggle room, and there's always, there is always wiggle room, because especially we're not talking about £40 jobs for mastering. We're talking about movies here. We're talking about, charging 40, 50 grand for a full mix of a film. There's always wiggle room when the budget's that big. Obviously you don't want to do 40, 50 grand's worth of work for nothing. Don't ever do that, because that's not worth doing. But yeah, like I say, big break. And I'm so thankful that we actually did it. Was when we went and we did The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And now, probably, God, I couldn't even tell you how many films we've done now. I did keep count at one point, and then it got a bit too many. And and also as well is, these are just the films that we hear about. There's multiple films that we don't get told about. So yeah, big break, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and what a break it was, to be honest.